Good morning, YouTube. This is Tide Pool Tim. It's a nice August morning. We're going out to rake some seaweed with this seaweed rake. Naturally, it's painted blue, long wood handle. Got the teeth to grab the stipes of the rockweed, and then we got these sickle bar blades, which I haven't used this in a while, and they're pretty dull. So what we're gonna do is take off these little nuts right here, take the blade off, and sharpen it up. Let's get that done before we go raking a ton, literally 2,000 pounds of seaweed for a customer in Southern Maine for their garden. There is the seaweed rake cutter bar, if you will. This is the grinder cutting blade that I use. I mean, you can use a regular hand file to sharpen these. This allows me to reach right into that groove on both sides. All right, let's give it a go. Nope, not plugged in. There we go, we got one side done. You always want to be grinding against the blade. So we're creating some super razor sharp edges there. Now we're going to go back and do all of these other sides. Tighten these suckers up. Alright, all sharpened up and ready to go. In Maine, you have to have a seaweed harvesting license, which I do, and you have to report your landings. But in this case, I'm going to be raking seaweed on land or shoreline that we own, so I don't have to go and get any landowner's permission because I am the landowner. So that makes it pretty convenient, and we're just going to be raking on some beds right down here on our shore, right beside the dock. We don't have to go far. And pretty much when you throw this rake out into the water, it sinks down. You give it a pull, and you pull in about, I don't know, 10 to 20, maybe 30 pounds of seaweed each pull. So let's say we need 2,000 pounds, 1 ton of fresh rockweed for this customer. So at 20 pounds a pull, with 100 pulls, we got 2,000 pounds. Kind of a hot day already. My multi-purpose skiff is out there waiting. Believe it or not, that 24-foot Carolina skiff, we've had as much as 10, 11,000 pounds of rockweed in that boat. So we're going to rake it into the boat and wait till high tide. When the tide goes up the shore, we'll back the trailer down, put the boat loaded with the seaweed onto the trailer, and then bring it up in the yard and empty it. We're going to have to get in the dinghy out there and row out to the skiff. With the flooding tide, reaching out, letting the rakes sink down to the bottom, give it a pull, up comes a nice clump of rockweed. You can see right here, there's about 6 or 8 rakefuls. There's a nice cluster right there. And the rake down, give it a pull, up it comes. Shake this thing off before I bang my head on it. Look across here, you can see tide flooding in. You can see down in the water, all the rockweed standing right on end, ready for us to rake. So we got about a 2-hour window between mid-tide and high tide where you can rake. And so you can rake on the flooding tide, but not at high tide, not at low tide. You can't access the weed. In the middle of the tide is where all the rockweed is attached to the solid marine ledge. Plenty here. Occasionally when you're raking, you will get a really large clump of rockweed that isn't attached to a ledge. Rather, it's attached to a stone. Like here we have a small rock, and when you pulled in the rake of seaweed, that rock came right over the rail. And you can tell when you do that, you hear a big clump. So what we do is we keep some knives handy. And if that happens, we cut it off, throw the rock back overboard. And that seaweed clump can keep growing. Let's watch the rake in action. Over, let it sink down, give it a swift pull, up it comes. Give it a shake. Every once in a while you gotta move your boat into the bed as the tide floods in. We're gonna go in and go sideways so that we can really access this. Wow, look at it all there. Woohoo! It is easier to rake the seaweed on the flood tide, because on the ebb tide you can sometimes get your boat stuck on a rock. Another nice thing about the Rockweed fishery, and it is a fishery managed by Department of Marine Resources, that you can do it 7 days a week. There's no limits. Yeah, you have a license. There's no red tide that shuts you down. You can do it on stormy days because you're right next to shore. So it's really quite a flexible schedule. You know, when you're going to work, I mean, this is a job, right? Raking seaweed. You want to know you can make your money reliably. So you can't really say that about lobstering. You can't really say that about digging clams. I mean, you can catch lobsters in the summer and fall. You can dig clams year round, but the price goes way down. There's many months of the year you cannot catch a lobster unless you go offshore. You can see our piles building up. That's probably 600 pounds. And since this is a hand harvest, the thing that you do as a seaweed raker is you kind of cherry pick the bed as you go along. You're not going to throw your rake down in a place that just has a little bit of weed. I mean, you want to get the most seaweed per rake stroke. So it's like picking berries. You're not going to sit all day in a patch picking 1 or 2 blueberries or raspberries. You shop around until you find the patch that has the biggest, most succulent berries. And the same is true for raking rockweed. So a lot of anti-rockweed people say, oh, the rakers are gonna, they clean the beds, they cut all of the forest down. That's not true. It's foolish. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you're using your body, your muscles. You're not gonna be going, oh, I'll get a little clump there. Oh, I'll get a little teeny clump there. You look around for the biggest clump and you drop the rake down in there so that hopefully you get a nice return for each stroke. Use your seaweed rake to push yourself around in the bed rather than having to start the motor. You just push. That way you'll stay in the floating seaweed, which keeps you working. Look at this big piece. Ooh. One nice thing about raking rockweed is that it's so quiet. You know, I'm sitting out here in this bed of seaweed. You don't hear an outboard. You don't hear a car going by. Totally human power. You can see if you were raking seaweed all summer long, you get totally ripped. I mean, not like me. I'm huffing and puffing here, but I'm gonna fire up the boat and go up into the bed a little more. You can see we got a pretty good jag of weed already. Right into it. It's hot out. Really hot out. Oh, hot day for raking rockweed. I get a nice pile. I'm gonna get a little bit more and then we're gonna call it a ton. There it is. Nice. About 2,000 pounds of rockweed. Now I get it trailered up the shore into my pickup. I and a 3.5-hour drive to the customer who's waiting to put it on their garden. This is Tide Pool Tim raking some knotted rack seaweed on a sunny day in August. Remember to like, comment, and share. Okay, so the tide is in, and if you look, you can see that the seaweed beds, the rockweed beds, are all submerged. You can't see any rockweed. I got my tractor down here, got the trailer there. We're gonna drive the skiff over and load it up onto the boat trailer and hopefully bring it up and then offload that into the pickup truck. Time to bring the boat over. I'll set the GoPro right there. From here over to here. There, we did it. Unloaded in 10 minutes.